Get your questions ready for the Fishing Call-In Show. 1 hour, we have a panel answer all your questions. 1-800-944-4664.
Tastes like victory.
Good dog? She's 3.5. She's with me all the time.
Hello and welcome to Kentucky Field. I'm Tim Farmer. Tonight we have a special 1 hour call-in show all about fishing. I said fishing. You're thinking hunting. But remember, the hunting show is in November, but fishing tonight. We have so many questions during the fishing show, we don't answer them all. So we're going to do it again tonight. To my left, Jeff Ross, Assistant Director of Fisheries. To his left, John Williams, Fisheries Biologist Extraordinaire. And all the way on the end, Chris Stewart, Conservation Officer. We have all kinds of questions already. Remember, on Facebook, Kentucky Afield, like it, and then put us a question on there and we'll try to answer. All right, let's get right to it. Jeff is from Fayette County. Why does fishing get better in the fall?
Well, probably mainly because the water starts cooling and the bait fish start coming up shallower and the fish are able to get up shallow and makes it easier for people to catch them. But the fish become more active as the water starts cooling.
Tim is from Anderson County. Is Lake Cumberland full now?
It's almost full. It's been full this year. I think we're down about 717 elevation, which is 7 or 8 feet below summer pool. But yeah, it's been full earlier in the year. Of course, we had a lot of rain early, and it should be full from here on out each year.
Let's talk about your position particularly. Where are you at? Talk about your district.
Right. I'm located in Somerset, Kentucky is our office, which we cover southeastern Kentucky. It includes Lake Cumberland, Laurel Lake, Del Hollow, Lake Linville, Wood Creek Lake, and then also basically the Cumberland River system and tributaries to that. So we cover a 15-county area in southeast Kentucky.
Lee's from Franklin County wants to know, how is the fishing, smallmouth fishing in Elkhorn Creek? And let me tell you what, I was there a couple weeks ago using my fly rod.
Yeah, it's starting
like
to
everybody
pick up
should.
again.
Let me tell you what, almost 4-pound fish on a fly rod.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
So I would say, yay. What would you say?
Yeah, it's, water coming down, or temperatures coming down again, so definitely firing up.
Sue's from Boyd County. How's the crappie in Grayson Lake, the old hometown? How's things going up there with crappie?
Those populations are pretty low. I mean, you can catch them, but it's not one of our best crappie fisheries in the state. Dewey is doing really well for crappie. Cave Run's doing really well for crappie, but Grayson, it's okay.
Let's talk about something I saw today. A guy was in a kayak and he posted a picture of him reaching down. I can't remember which lake he was at, but he reached down, he scooped up a jar full of, you know what I'm going to say? Jellyfish.
Oh, yep.
A lot of people say there's no jellyfish in Kentucky. Let's talk about what those actually were.
Right, they are jellyfish. In fact, I first saw jellyfish in Laurel Lake about 15 or 20 years ago. At that time, I thought this can't be a jellyfish. Jellyfish are in salt water. But we do have one species of freshwater jellyfish. They're in several lakes throughout the state and actually in several states. So,
how did they get here?
Well, not really sure. I think they're originally from either China or some reports say England, but they've been here for a while.
Probably came in the bilgewater or something.
Who knows? But this is the time of year you see them. They have a free swimming stage, and in the fall, in several of our lakes, you'll see them swimming around.
A question I had from somebody earlier: do they affect our ecosystem in any way, shape, form, or fashion? Negatively?
Probably not to any great extent. I mean, it's my understanding they feed on zooplankton, so they could impact the zooplankton population.
I wonder if anything eats them. I wonder if bass eat them or anything.
That's a good question. I don't know.
I'd like to find that out. Tom's from Pulaski County. Are there muskie in Lake Cumberland? Yes or no?
There's muskie in the Big South Fork of Lake Cumberland, the Big South Fork River. We've seen some really nice muskie below Blue Heron to Yamacraw. And I have heard a few reports of them going on down into the lake, so there potentially could be a few in Lake Cumberland.
All right, Kevin is from Oldham County. Are there any muskie in the Kentucky River?
Oh yeah, we're stocking them in a bunch of the pools. People are catching them. Tailwaters are good. With the water cooling, once again, they should be biting better. But yeah, you can catch them in almost any of the pools in the Kentucky River.
Hey, get ready. It looks like there's going to be a lot of muskie questions tonight. All right, and remember, if you want to get on Kentucky Field Facebook page and ask a question, absolutely do that, and we'll try to answer a few of those. Laura Pope is on Facebook. Smallmouth fishing seems to be off the last few years at Dell Hollow. Is there a problem with the population?
We've heard conflicting reports on some anglers have told me that they, it's as good as it has ever been. Others have been struggling. So I think it's one of those things. Most fishermen just remember the last few trips, and if they've struggled, then they can come out with a bad outcome. But we did have a minor fish kill a few years ago, but I haven't heard of any recently. And as our last sampling showed plenty of smallmouth, so I think they're in pretty good shape.
Sam is from Pulaski County. Will the walleye record ever be broken, and will John Williams break it?
I would love to break that record.
I bet you would.
Walleye's really my favorite fish to fish for.
Oh, I wouldn't have guessed that.
It's going to be very difficult to break that record. It's 21 and a half pounds. Biggest one I've seen is around 15. If we do break it, it's probably going to be a native strain walleye that will break it, and we have been stocking those in a number of water bodies within the state, so the potential's there. The state record was from a native fish, so hopefully a few years down the road we'll see some.
Jeff has a good question, and I'll bet you have a good answer. He's from Hardin County. Why do we stock fish that don't reproduce? It is a good question, and there is a good answer. Whoever wants to take that.
It works well. For like the hybrid striped bass, it's one that we typically don't have reproduce. I mean, they're very good fighting fish. All the hybrids are good fighting fish. They're a little more aggressive. They grow quickly. So that's one of the reasons. Then your farm ponds, if you put hybrids in, they can produce, or they can provide a fishery without overpopulating the pond. So there's several reasons that we would do that.
Daniel is from Lawrence County. Are we ever going to stock blue cats in Yatesville Lake? And whoever takes that, let's talk about the blue catfish program, which I think is mighty cool.
Right.
And is Yatesville on the
list? We haven't put Yatesville on the list yet. The ones that we have, Dewey, Fish Trap, and Taylorsville, they're all doing very well. Taylorsville, they've got fish over 55, 60 pounds, so they're doing really well. Yatesville at this point is not on our stocking list.
Dan is from Campbell County, wants to know about Lake Linville. What is it known for, and what fish are caught there?
Lake Linville, that's in Rockcastle County and around Mount Vernon. It's a shallow, fertile lake. Bluegill fishing historically has been very good. It's a good summertime fishery. Using crickets, bluegill's good. Also, the largemouth bass population is good. There's a lot of bass. A few of them are really large. Catfish is good there. We've sampled one of the largest flathead catfish I've ever seen out of that lake. So it's a fertile lake. Also stock hybrid stripers there. So really a variety of fish.
Richard is from Jefferson County. If I live on the Kentucky side, can I fish from the Indiana side? With a Kentucky license, I think it's what he's saying.
Okay, with Kentucky license, yes, he can. He can fish on the Indiana side. He just has to make sure he's on the main river channel when he's fishing there, and he also has to abide by all the Indiana laws and regulations while he's fishing there.
And Ken is from Kenton County, and he wants to know, can you come on private property to check somebody's fishing license?
I can, and I do. Absolutely.
There it is.
So, and here's a question we're getting a lot of, and I'm sure we'll cover it later, but Bill wants to know, if he owns the farm, can his family come fish on his farm? Do they have to have a fishing license?
His spouse and his dependent children are the only ones that can fish on that family farm without having to have a fishing license to be able to fish there. If anybody else comes and fishes there, then they have to have a Kentucky fishing license.
Gabriel is from Campton, and he wants to go bass fishing in September and October. And he wants to know what's the best way he should go about that. What baits would you use if you're bass fishing?
A lot of people use jerk baits and fast running crankbaits, shallow crankbaiting and stuff for the shad, and others kind of match the hatch with the forage fish that are up shallow.
Bob is from Charlestown, Indiana. We thank our Indiana viewers. Haven't caught any big hybrid striper in Rough River in a long time, and he seems to think that that's a pervasive issue over there.
It's actually a very interesting issue because our sampling shows a ton of hybrids in rough. But this time of year and throughout the summer, the anglers just cannot catch them, and we fully trust they're not catching them. We actually are thinking of doing a tracking study to try to figure out where those hybrids are going and if we can get the anglers put on them better, because in the fall when we sample, we get a ton of them.
Well, you know what? There's one fella I knew who could catch them down there, big ones, this time of year.
Yep.
And you know what? I didn't watch him close enough, but Randall Gibson, our old buddy, well, we caught some monsters down there in August, September. So they can be caught. They are there.
Yeah, it's just, and it's more than, a single person having trouble with them. So we're going to try to see if we can't get them on them.
Bob's from Russell County. He wants to know about river sturgeon. Are they protected in Lake Cumberland?
Yes, they are. If you catch a lake sturgeon, if you catch one, you have to release it. We would like to know about any that are being caught, because we're in about year 9, I think, of our sturgeon restoration, and we're trying to protect those fish. It takes them a long time to reach maturity, reproduce. So if you do catch one, you need to immediately release it, but let us know about it.
Tell us real quickly what they look like. It's
They
really
look
unusual.
unlike really any other fish in the state. They have these
You're not going to
large.
mistake it for a bluegill, are you?
No, they got kind of a long snout. They got large bony plates on the side of their the side of the body. Kind of a long tail, a mouth on the bottom. They're a bottom feeder, and they potentially can get very large. We've been doing this 9 years, and I've already got some up 3 feet long. So
Oh, wow. What do we know size-wise? What can they actually reach?
I think they can get over maybe close to 100 pounds or so, can't they? The state record,
So
I
they
think,
weigh
was
the same as me.
but they can get large, and some other species of sturgeon can get several hundred pounds. So
Wow.
they're a long-lived, prehistoric-looking fish.
Art is from Glasgow. Are there any blue cats in Barren River Lake?
Yes. I think if people hand grab for them and other things, pretty popular. Jugging's there, it's pretty popular. They've got flatheads, and I'm sure there's blues there too.
James is from Warren County. Are hybrid striped bass still being stocked in Barren River Lake?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're putting them in there. It's actually a very good fishery.
How do you keep track of all this? I mean, seriously, there's a
It's-
lot.
I don't know,
You've been doing it a long time, haven't you?
I cram it in and goes away next day.
Travis is from Hazard. He's getting these. Now, this is a common question. He's getting these fish that have yellow worms under the skin. That's pretty common.
Right, we see that quite a bit. It's a yellow grub, a very common parasite of fish, especially in farm ponds. The grub is actually mature in the digestive tract of great blue herons or similar herons, and then the grub passes into the water, enters a snail for a period of time, and then eventually enters the fish and encysts in the skin, and you see those, almost looks like kind of a yellowish grains of rice, but they're you can eat the fish if they have those. I know it looks unsightly, but there's, as long as you properly cook the fish, there's no harm. So
Man, I'm
just
telling
extra
you,
protein.
there are a bunch of muskie questions tonight. A whole lot. We'll get to those in a minute. Here's one from Ron in Macquarie County. Why aren't muskie stocked in the Big South Fork of the Cumberland?
Well, Tennessee does stock muskie in the Big South Fork of the Cumberland, and actually they stock them for us, I guess, because they come into the Kentucky portion, and there's a decent population of pretty good-sized muskie in South Fork.
Jesse's from Jessamine County. Is there an age limit on a fishing license? What's the...
Once you hit 16 years old, you have to have a fishing license here in Kentucky.
Darlene's from Davis County. Has Kingfisher Lake been restocked?
We've started the restocking. I think they got catfish in there. They'll be getting bluegill here and bass. We're just finishing up the work on the lake. We're going to have I know there have been some concerns with some of the weed growth on the lake, but we're going to have a company out there probably in the next week or so spraying for some of the willows and such, and should knock that down, and it's going to look really good. It's got great access they've done there, new access. It's going to be really good.
Bob is from Grant County, subdivision lake. Folks are trespassing like crazy. They're trashing the place. What can he do?
Well, what I normally tell people in these situations is that you have a community lake that's not necessarily owned by one single person. I tell them just if they have like a homeowners association to get together and contact their local conservation officer and their local county attorney as well, just to see what they can do. If they're trespassing, obviously we can charge them with trespassing, or they can have them charged with trespassing or fishing without permission in our case. If they're littering, we can get them for littering, and any other crimes they may be doing out there, we can get them for those as well. And they're more than happy to do so.
Gotcha. Tim's from out west. He lives on Barren River Lake, and he wants to know, with all the bass tournaments on that on that lake, does that actually hurt the bass population?
No, I think the bass fishermen do a pretty good job of taking care of the fish. Summertime's a little more rough on them, but we've never seen a dramatic decrease in bass populations due to fishing tournaments.
Perry is from Daviess County. Are there stripers in Rough River?
No.
No.
Pretty much Lake Cumberland's the only reservoir we have them in.
David is from Henry County, and he wants to know how many alligator gar were put in the Kentucky River. I don't think that was was that in the stocking area?
No. It was all out west, and I don't have the numbers. We put a lot of fish out west. And
But not any in the Kentucky River. How's that going, by the way? Any of those turning?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing them. We had a project with Murray State for a while there. It's kind of died down, and we're just keeping an eye on them and seeing how they're doing. But I think, we're seeing some fish.
How big should they be getting about right
Well,
now?
if they get full size, it's up with a lake sturgeon, 100 pounds. But I don't know how big they are now. I haven't heard. Maybe 48 inches, maybe a little bit bigger.
Okay, Peyton is from Barren County. Are there any walleye in Barren River Lake? And if so, where can he catch them?
There's, in the upper Barren, we've stocked native walleye, and also just this year stocking the lower Barren with native walleye. So I think the upper Barren we've stocked for 5 or 6 years, something like that, and then this year the first time on lower Barren. So that he'll be able to catch hopefully native walleye above and below the lake.
Yeah, a lot of those fish went down below, and they did so well down below, we started stocking them down there in the tailwater. So,
Mike is from Johnson County. How long does this is a good question, and I'm sure a lot of people wondered this. How long does it take for a stream to stabilize after it's been flooded? I suppose you think when that water flushes that out, what happens to those fish? I'm sure some of them stay, but what happens there?
That's a good question, Tim.
That is a good question. I was waiting for a good
They don't leave
answer.
the water. They stay in the water.
They obviously don't leave.
I'm sure they're adapted to flood conditions, so that's probably not a big deal for most of the stream and river fish. They're used to fluctuating water levels.
Let's see. This is from Ohio County. Larry wants to know, saw that a hatchery was selling paddlefish. And he says, can they be fed? Thought they had to live, in the open water to survive since they're plankton strainers.
they are plankton strainers. There are some fish propagators in the state that do sell paddlefish, but they do need to feed on zooplankton. So if you're going to stock them, that's what they'll feed on in the pond. They may compete a little bit with the sport fish, but they do need plankton to survive.
David James, Hatchery Creek update. When will this be completed? Facebook.
They're working hard. I think they're still trying to meet the May 2016 deadline that we've kind of set to get it finished up. So that's the timeline right now in May of next year.
Bunch of striper questions coming in now. Joe Cruz on Facebook, which lake has the premier striped bass population and what is the record here?
State record's 58 pounds, 4 ounces out of Lake Cumberland back in '88, I believe.
Wow.
You know, right now, probably the best place to catch a trophy striped bass would be the tailwater below Lake Cumberland.
Big ones
We
down there.
see 40s and 50-pound fish down there. So if the record's going to be broken, it'll probably be in the tailwater.
David's from Leslie County. Is there any consideration on changing the limit on stripers? He wants to catch more.
No, not right now. We've stayed with the 2-fish creel limit for a number of years, and then a few years ago we went to the 22-inch size limit, which I think we're going to stay with that for a while too. Most of the anglers I've talked to really like the 22-inch size limit. Before, they were kind of being forced to release a lot of fish just under the 24-inch size limit in late summer, and so we've kind of alleviated that problem. So we're going to stick with a 22-inch 2-fish creel limit for the foreseeable future.
Now, if they fish the tailwater, Barkley or Tennessee, Kentucky Barkley, or the Ohio River, that's a 5-fish limit. So there are some places that you can keep more than 2.
Gotcha. Getting a bunch of questions tonight. We like that, and we're going to try to answer as many as we possibly can. I've got a pile of them here. I'm going to keep digging through
And
them.
actually, the Cumberland tailwater, you can keep 5 fish, 15-inch size limit down there. So
Wes is from Jessamine County. How long does it take for smallmouth to get to be 5 or 6 pounds? And he wants to know specifically in a creek, but does it make any difference?
Yeah, they're
takes a
slower
lot longer
growing.
in
Yeah.
a creek. Yeah.
Longer
5
in a
or
creek.
6 pounds, that's gonna be 7, 8 years at least.
Yeah, it probably takes to get to say 18 inches. Usually we're talking 6, 7 years. So, yeah, I'd say at least
At least
yeah,
that.
At least that.
Okay, Ed's from Barron County. Black-nosed crappie. Any stocked in Barron River Lake? Man, a bunch of Barron River questions tonight.
I'm not sure if that was one of the lakes that we did some of our black-nosed crappie stocking.
We did Laurel, did black nose in Laurel in the early 2000s.
Park Creek Lake, we put them in. Kentucky's got them. But I'm not sure about Barron.
I'm not either.
Okay, Pulaski County question. Does the size limit on fish change when you fish in a creek as opposed to a lake?
Not unless there's a special regulation set for it, like Elkhorn's got a 12 to 16-inch size limit with, you're only allowed 2 fish over that. And Otter Creek's got a special reg, but if it's a creek that doesn't have a special reg, then it would be statewide.
Okay. You know what? I saw somebody this is an interesting, and I can't be specific, but somebody found an eel recently. Can we talk about the eel in Kentucky and what a kind of strange phenomenon that is?
I've seen them reports from Tug Fork. They catch them Kentucky Barkley Lakes. And it's kind of an interesting...
In the Ohio River.
Yeah. But I think they come from Sargasso Sea, don't they? Travel
Yeah.
back there to reproduce. It's kind of an interest.
Yeah,
They're
so-
here for a while, and then they travel back. I don't know the whole traveling corridor on that one, but...
No, but yeah, it's a long distance to get to our lakes from.
Blaine lives in Ohio, and we thank our Ohio viewers. He comes to Kentucky to fish, and he wants to know if there are any restriction on belly boats or belly tubes. Those are fun, and I'm telling you what, pretty productive. You can really get around and be quiet and sneak up. Any restrictions on those?
I would say that if it comes to a point where you feel like you're out in open water, away from any type of safe swimming area or safe fishing area, where you need to have a life jacket on or a life jacket with you. But other than that, we see people out there in them all the time, and see them out on Cumberland River too. So.
Robbie's from Jefferson County. What temperature water is best to sustain a smallmouth population? Good question. And can you keep them in a pond?
Generally, they don't do very well in ponds. We've done a lot of research over the years, and largemouth bass is the black bass species we recommend for ponds. I know a lot of people like to catch smallmouth from their lake and bring them to their ponds, but usually they don't do very well.
John's from Hardin County. Why have they stopped stocking trout in Rough River?
They're talking about the tailwater, that has to do with the construction they're doing on the dam. We'll actually start that back up. If he's talking about, no, I'm thinking of Rough Creek. That had low use, but for Rough River, the tailwater stockings are just delayed until they get done with the cores gets done with the dam construction.
Gotta be careful how you say that. This is Hunter from Garrett County. It's not Girard County, it's Garrett County.
All right.
He wants a 10-pound bass. He's very specific. He has a goal. Everybody needs a goal. If he wanted to catch a 10-pound bass in Kentucky, where would you say his likelihood is good to do that? And it's doable.
Yeah, there's some lakes. I don't know, Bashir gets close, I think.
Wood Creek.
Wood Creek,
yeah,
lakes
I've
with trout in them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not kidding. That's where
They
our
like to
records
eat
are
trout,
all
don't they?
Cedar
from.
Creek's, I don't know of any that large, but some approaching that size, and that's another lake good forage base.
You know, Kincaid's got some big ones. It's a small lake, but it's got some big bass in it. Kentucky and Barkley are good, but,
I got a hold of one at Wood Creek one time. I couldn't do anything with him. Broke my line. I saw him. He was a big fish.
Yeah.
David's from Oldham County. When will the ramp on Benjikinman Lake be repaired?
They are going to, I think that's closing September 14th, if I remember right. I think it potentially could be out of commission until next spring. They've got a issue with the dam, which is pretty important that we get that fixed. So,
Jill is from Madison County. Really good question. What water in Kentucky, what waters have Asian carp? How widespread are they now, and where are
they're
they?
pretty widespread. If you take the Ohio River, they're throughout that, and then any river or stream or creek that runs into the Ohio, they can be found up any of those. They're in Kentucky and Barkley lakes. That's primarily it for now, and we'd like to keep them out of any other waters. So that's a good time to plug the fact that if you're fishing live bait and you collect live bait somewhere, you need to go ahead and only fish with that live bait where you collected it. And that what I'm talking about is shad, herring, and if you happen to collect live Asian carp, you got to only fish with them where you catch them.
Tim Tong wants to know how far into smaller creeks or coves off of a public body of water can you legally go before you trespass onto private property, except for the huge warning sign on the Salt River going into Fort Knox?
Generally, if you're on top of the water, you're fine. It's the point where you get out of your boat or when your boat or whatever you happen to be in touches the ground. The ground underneath the water is owned by somebody, but the water that goes through the creek is public access. Basically, you can go anywhere on the water.
Jim is from Louisville, and he's heard some rumors about some folks putting bass in cages for tournaments. Can they be fined, and is that your jurisdiction, or?
Well, that can be our jurisdiction, and we've had officers who've run into that in the past during tournaments. But it's also, you're looking at fraud, especially when you're looking at some of these big prizes that these guys are winning in these bass tournaments. And in that case, if it's a situation where we're charging somebody that we're not used to with the law, then we may call in somebody else to help us out, but generally we'll still be the one charging them with it.
So you say probably it's not a good idea to do it?
No, absolutely not.
All right, Lee's from McCracken County, white bass fishing at the north end of Barkley and Kentucky Lakes. In the past, he's had a blast, not so much this year.
I haven't got any
None
reports
of
on
that?
What you probably want to do is give our Western District biologist a call. That's Paul Reister, and all their numbers are in the fishing and boating guide. So just give them a call. All of our biologists would be happy to speak about any of the species they got in their districts.
Don is from Morgan County. Why is there a 13 to 16 inch slot limit on largemouth bass at Cave Run Lake instead of a size limit?
Well, it is a kind of size limit. Typically, we put slot limits on lakes where we got high reproduction and a lot of small fish, and we need some of those small fish taken out to kind of reduce the densities. They don't compete as much with each other, and they start to grow faster. They'll grow through that slot, and we'll end up with more bigger fish. So in the case of Cave Run, with a lot of small fish, we're asking people to keep some of those small ones, and that's the way that slot limit works.
Susan is from Davis County. Are there any other ways to fish for Asian carp? She saw us shooting them. Saw me try to get one in the cooler, and it wouldn't fit. Are there any other ways to catch those fish other than shooting them with a bow and arrow?
That's probably the primary way to get them. I mean, snagging and bow fishing are probably the two ways that you need to go after them.
Charles is from Hamilton, Ohio. Are they going to put the marina back at the old London dock?
I haven't heard that they are. I've been down there, I guess, in the last year. You can still launch there. There's a ramp there, but I don't believe there's any plans, but I could be mistaken on that.
Mark is from Davies County. A bunch of Davies County folks tonight. Can flathead catfish be put in a farm pond? And if so, where can you get them?
Well, it's probably not a good species to have in there. They eat a lot of fish, so.
So if you like your bluegill,
they
like bluegill too, don't they?
We don't recommend it, so I wouldn't even say where you could get them.
They're voracious predators.
Yeah.
Daryl's from Pendleton County. Are walleye stocked in A.J. Jolly in Alexandria?
No, but we are putting sawguy in there, which is a new species that we're stocking. It's a cross between a walleye and a sauger, and they're getting pretty good size. I think the size limit on them is 14 inches. 15 inches, actually. I think I'm off on that. So that's something that you can fish for. It looks like a walleye, and they're going to taste like a walleye, which is good. So
like that.
they're starting to build up a pretty good population.
Jeff Wright just moved here from Texas, looking forward to muskie fishing on Cave Run Lake. What are the legal measurements, and can he use a cast net for bait fish?
Yes, you can use a cast net. What was the first part of that?
Size limit.
Size limit.
36-inch size limit.
Legal
one fish
measurements.
For
36.
Muskie.
Oh, yeah,
36 inches.
One fish.
One fish. That's doable.
Yeah.
Only 10,000 casts. You know what? It's funny they say that it's a fish of 10,000 casts, but I've had days, and you've had days, where I've caught 5 or 6 and had 4 or 5 come up. Now that doesn't happen every day.
Yeah.
But I had to cast 40,000 times for that to happen.
Yeah, if I get them on the first cast, I just leave.
Yeah, just go home. It's over. Connors from Round County, can you snag spoonbill or paddlefish in the Licking River?
Yes.
I'm sure I don't know how much of a fishery there
Yeah.
is there for them.
It's, the season's February to May 10th, I think, so it's only for a short period of time, but there's no restrictions on where you snag in the licking.
Terry's from Rochester, and he wants to know, by the way, for anybody out there who's concerned, there's 1P in striper. Otherwise, it takes on a whole new meaning.
God knows where-
And what size limit on stripers, and how many can you get?
Well, depends on
So
what
y'all
part of the
messed
state.
up now.
In Lake Cumberland, it's 22-inch size limit, 2-fish creel limit. Statewide's a 15-inch size limit, 5-fish creel limit. You mentioned some other, I guess Ohio River would be statewide limits. So,
Ronnie wants to know smallmouth in Barron. How's the population of smallmouth in Barron?
I think it's decent. Barron's been doing really well across the board for almost every species in there. Barron and Green kind of close together. Both of them are doing they're 2 of our best reservoirs we have.
Jason's from Shelby County. Are there plans to stock trout back into Lake Cumberland?
no.
No.
That would be good striper bait.
Yeah, they love them, don't they? Jerry from Barron County, upper and lower. There's going to be some repetitive questions. Some people are tuning in at 8:30. They think we just came on. They're saying, "Hey, there's a call-in show." So we're going to take as many. Y'all are doing great, by the way. I don't know if we've ever answered this many questions. Jerry's from Barron County, and great questions. Upper and lower end of Barron River, are you still stocking native walleye?
Yes.
Dustin's from Salem, Indiana. He said the red and green lights, the beacons along the Ohio River, who to call to get those replaced? Are you familiar with what he's talking about?
Would that be the Army Corps?
I'd say the Army Corps or the Coast Guard maybe for the navigation buoys.
Aaron's from Owen County. Are they going to repair the boat ramp at the Kentucky River on 355?
I don't know. If he wants to call in, we can go ahead and get a hold of our engineering crew and try to figure that one out. I don't have the answer to that.
Donald is from Harrison County. What kind of fish do we stock at the lakes in Frankfort? I'm assuming he's talking about the game farm lakes.
Yeah, that's actually one of our many fins lakes that we have across the state. And at all of those lakes, we stock catfish and trout and, for the most part, hybrid sunfish in almost all of them. So the trout stocking should be coming here in a couple months, I'd say.
Jeff, Davis County. Man, we got a bunch of folks down there watching tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Asian carp, is there any restriction on snagging with a rod and reel? They got 12 actually while they're fishing
Right.
for catfish.
Well, if you're snagging, then you're going to have to snag during the snagging season, which is February 1st through, I believe it's May 10th. And you're going to have to follow the laws that are written up for snagging as far as the type of equipment you have.
We kind of ask that they don't. A lot of people, when they snag, they don't have anywhere to take them, so they just leave them.
Yeah.
It's not. It just makes a mess. So if they can get them somewhere other than just dropping them right on the shoreline there.
You know, there's one thing I'd like to say real quick. The bow fishermen who like to get out and shoot the Asian carp, if you will try to, and most people do, but if you can take those fish and puncture their air bladder, deep six them right there, instead of taking them to the bank and laying them out for everybody to see, and then, oh, I think I'll just leave them here. It gets pretty stinky pretty quick, so, you know, if you can, let's not leave them on the dock. Ed's from Fayette County. How come you don't stock crappie in Finn's lakes?
Crappie in a lot of small lakes tend to overpopulate, and a lot of the Fins lakes probably already have them, but in those that don't, crappie just aren't a really good species for ponds. What we usually say about 100 acres
Right.
before you start stocking crappie, and it's just they overpopulate real easy.
All right, John from Caldwell County's heard us talking about snagging. He wants to know, where in Kentucky can you legally snag?
Snag almost anywhere. I think the tailwaters are good. I know Kentucky and Barkley tailwaters are very popular. Some of the Ohio River tailwaters are good.
Upper part of Lake Cumberland in the Cumberland River below Cumberland Falls. Good in the spring.
Brian is from Jasper, Indiana, and he wants to know the best place in Kentucky to catch perch. Now, some people call bluegill perch, and if he's talking about yellow perch, it'd probably only be in the western part of the state. But I guess let's...
Yeah, there's actually a few perch in Wood Creek Lake. Don't know how they got there, but...
I didn't do it.
Kentucky and Barkley got a really nice bluegill population. All of our state-owned lakes have decent population. I think Cumberland's got decent bluegill, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I tell you what, that's fishing like a new lake, and with all that cover, they're probably going to have some really good... I've heard some stories about some 10-inch bluegill being caught down there.
I've talked to some of the guides that, normally striper fish, but tried bluegill fishing in late spring, early June, slaying the big bluegill.
I like that. Jerry's from Georgetown, Indiana. What makes... Now, this sounds, on the face of it, sounds like a simple question, but it's a really good question. What makes a smallmouth bass strike a buzzbait? What causes them to react to a bait that's making that much racket? Are they mad at it? Are they hungry? What's going on?
I kind of call it a reactive strike. I think, if the temperature's right and they're hungry, and in aggressive mood, they'll go after it. They won't always hit buzzbaits. It depends on the, what activity mode they're in and the temperature of the water. But I think a lot of it's a reactive strike. They see the splashing of the water, some of the buzzbaits clack, and it just sounds like a bait fish that's kind of struggling, and they figure that's probably an easy meal.
Ed's from Lewis County. Will you ever stock Florida hybrid largemouth bass?
The Florida strain of largemouth. Right now, we are not stocking them. I know Tennessee is trying on the very southern end of Kentucky Lake, but we're kind of sitting above where researchers have kind of deemed, where the Florida strain do well. We're too far north for them to really get the performance advantage that they get down in Florida and some of the southern states. So for right now, we will not be stocking them.
On Facebook, Steve Concrete wants to know, I live in the Owensboro area and I love to fish the local Finns Lakes, and I was wondering, will the limits on trout and catfish ever be raised? And I'm seeing a little bit of algae in those lakes and wondering what they can do about that.
We can get a hold, if he wants to call in, we can get a hold of the counties and see, if they can deal with the algae, whatever lakes that he's having trouble at. As far as the trout numbers, we can only stock so many because we have limited production. All of our trout come from Wolf Creek Fish Hatchery below Lake Cumberland. So we want to kind of disperse the catch to everybody, let everybody have a few. So if we raise a limit and, a few people take a ton, then everybody doesn't get a real good chance at catching trout.
David's from Anderson County. Status of red ear population on Beaver Lake.
It's doing pretty well. We've treated the weeds there and did some work with the fish populations, and I think the bass and the red ear are doing, they're starting to rebound pretty good.
Earl's from Jefferson County. Do senior citizens 55 plus, that's what was written down, have to have a fishing license? How does that actually work?
Well, our senior license works for 65 and older. It's a $5 license, and basically it covers everything that your sportsman's license is going to cover. And that's what they need now. 55, you're going to need your standard Kentucky resident fishing license or non-resident from out of state.
Okay, Stacy Elkin lives in Franklin County on the Kentucky River. What's the law on fishing from the banks? Do you need a fishing license? There's a lot of confusion out there. Right. There really is. Some people think if you're not fishing on a boat, you don't have to have a license.
Right. I guess she means if she owns the property that goes to the river. You do need a fishing license to fish in any type of river or creek or anything like that, even if your property does go up to the water or even underneath the water, just because that river does travel through several properties and several counties.
So what do you have to do if you're fishing? I mean, what's the basic rule? Who has to have a fishing license in Kentucky? Because a lot of people, I've had people call me and say, hey man, I'm not fishing out a boat, so I don't have to have, I mean, there's
right,
really.
Right. Basically, everybody's got to have a fishing license in Kentucky.
Starting at what age?
Starting at 16 years old.
Right.
You need a fishing license. If you're going to be anywhere other than property that you own or you're a dependent child of the owner, you have to have a fishing license.
Tony's from Rowan County. Are hybrids being stocked in Grayson Lake?
Yep, we that was a long, old stocking that we did, and then we thought there might have been a little competition with the bass, so we stocked for a couple years, or we stopped for a couple years, and then we started back up, and they're doing really well again. So there's still a few from the old stockings, some bigger fish, and now there's a good number of 15 to 18, 19-inch fish.
I love catching those things. Dennis is from Rockcastle County. Any walleye being put back into the Rockcastle River?
We are not currently stocking walleye in the Rockcastle River. Of course, that's our broodfish, native, our source of native walleye. We're looking to see if they're going to reproduce. They should produce a year class at least every 4 or 5 years, and so we won't need to stock. But if they don't produce a year class, we will stock here in the future.
Did you notice we're getting really good questions tonight?
Yeah, they're
We
good.
gotta tell our audience what a good job they're doing. David's from Pulaski County. Are we stocking shell crackers at Cumberland? If so, how often?
We are stocking surplus red ear sunfish or shell crackers at Lake Cumberland. I believe this year we're putting about 75,000 in. We have stocked it for the last several years. We're going to actually be trying to sample some red ear and see how they're doing. Would like to get some reports. Anybody that's catching any red ear, let us know.
Glenn's from Jackson, lives in Jackson, Kentucky. North Fork of the Kentucky River, how is the fishing there?
I know Kevin Fry, our Eastern District biologist, when I was checking around with him to see what was biting, he mentioned that the muskie are actually doing pretty well right now. Probably just starting up, but that would probably be the species to go for.
Greg's from Menifee County. Why are there no walleye in Cave Run Lake?
It's lake. Yeah, well, the water, walleye need cool, oxygenated water, and Cave Run's probably a little too fertile for them to do well there. So it's even the smallmouth struggle pretty well at Cave Run, so it's probably not the best lake for us to stock walleye in.
Russ is from Indiana. He's 75 years old. Does he have to buy a Kentucky license to fish?
If he's from Indiana, yes, he needs to have a Kentucky license if he wants to fish in Kentucky, other than on the Ohio River, like we discussed earlier.
Roy is from Clay County, and he wants to know how's the smallmouth population in the South Fork of the Kentucky River around Redbird area?
It's good. Smallmouth's good in the South Fork Kentucky River for much of the stretch. We sample there once in a while for muskie and smallmouth. I've seen some really nice smallmouth come out of South Fork.
How about walleye and sauger in the Licking River below Cave Run Dam? That's Danny from Round County.
I'm not sure. I haven't gotten any reports on that. I'm assuming,
I don't know.
they can run through that area. So I just don't. I haven't heard how well they're doing.
Let's see. Matt is from Boone County. Took a survey about motorboats on bolts.
Yep, that was that had to do with the horsepower restrictions.
Limitations.
Yeah, we did have public meetings and surveys, and what came out of that is that we've now allow boats over 10 horsepower to operate at idle speed. There was 8 lakes: Bolts, Bullock, Elmer, Kincaid, Corinth. I'm going to miss one here. Shanty Hollow, and there's one out west, Swan Lake. I may have missed one, but those lakes now, people with big boats can get on them at idle speed and be able to use those lakes as well.
Chris is from Madison County. What's the status of Whitehall Lake, and when will they restock it?
That was a Finn's Lake, I think, at one time.
I'm not familiar with it.
If it's not a Finn's Lake, we may be putting catfish in there. I'm not sure if that's one. If it's a Finn's Lake, then it's probably going to be getting trout here in December, January, I think, is the first trout stocking.
This is from Bullitt County. If either one of you gets this right, I'll give you $100 on air. Where are all the big fish at? That's the question.
In the water.
I'm going to see if I can find a sponsor to give you $100 right there. That's a pretty good answer. All right. Now, if you see me throwing a question away, it's not because I don't like you. It's because we've already got that question. We have piles and piles of questions, and again, we answer as many as we can. These guys are great tonight, as usual. Daryl's from Nelson County. How do you eliminate crawfish from a foreign pond?
I I think you can use a copper compound.
Use copper sulfate, pour down the holes, but really it's very difficult to completely eliminate crayfish.
Emmanuel's from Northern Ohio. Sauger in Kentucky Lake. What's the best time?
Being a cooler water species, I would say, fall would, we're coming into a good period to fish for them. And the tailwater.
Tammy is from Campbell County. Where did Tim get his pedal boat? We get a lot of that he uses on the show. That's a native craft. It's really cool. Hands-free fishing, or at least it's mighty handy to have one. But that's a native craft, and we got that from Canoe, Kentucky, in Frankfort. I think that's one of the only places you can get them in Kentucky. And Frank's from Davis County. Can you snag out of a boat? Why or why not?
There are different regulations throughout the state for each particular body of water that you can be on. Most people that we see snagging, they're on the shores. A lot of them are in tailwaters and whatnot, and that's where they're snagging.
Jeff from Corbin. How's the smallmouth population on Laurel Lake?
Last I fished it, it was decent. I'm usually have a person that calls me whenever it's really good, so he hasn't called me lately, so I don't know if he's struggling or what. But Laurel's one of those lakes. It's tough to fish sometimes, but there are some very nice smallmouth.
What's a beautiful
catch
lake.
that. It is a
and
beautiful
there are
lake.
days you can clean up. That's kind of a hero zero lake, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're gonna
Yeah.
come out smiling or frowning.
Yeah.
Of course, that's fishing in general. Samantha's from Metcalfe County. Are you allowed to use scuba gear while you're noodling?
You can use scuba gear while you're noodling. Of course, the season's about to go out here, I guess on Sunday. Noodling season will be out, but you can use it while you're noodling.
Steve's from Richmond, and he says, do they have blue catfish in Will-Green Lake?
Yes, we stock blues in Will-Green. That is one of the lakes we stock them in.
All right, we've done that one. Casey from Manchester. What's the record smallmouth? It says in the river. We don't know specifically, but what is the biggest smallmouth caught in Kentucky? Ballpark. Is that in that guide?
Yes, it is.
Biggest
It's
smallmouth.
11. You talking about the Del Hollow?
Well, just the state record.
I think it's 11
Yeah, it's 11,
pounds,
11
15 ounces.
15.
11.15.
Yeah, that's a big fish.
We're claiming that fish, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? That was a new lake, and it's probably a condition that was right at that time. Will it happen again?
That's one record I doubt will be broken.
Okay, Rusty wants to know, how big are the yellow perch getting at Kentucky and Barkling Lake, and are they spreading?
I haven't heard of them spreading, and I don't know. We don't get enough reports on them. I don't think a lot of people actually fish too much for them.
You know, the ones that I've seen back when we used to shock down there, when I was working for fisheries, you see them up north, 12 inches long. They're really good to eat. But I've never seen really big ones.
Yeah, you don't hear of anybody saying I caught a bunch of big yellow perch.
And a lot of times I'd catch them and think it was a log perch or something, and I'd say, whoa, it's a yellow perch. Biggest sauger ever caught in Kentucky? Haley wants to know from Fayette County.
7 pounds, 7 ounce, I think, in the Cumberland tailwaters.
Wow. Kevin's from Barron County. Why are bluegill in Barron River Lake so small?
I don't know. In a big reservoir, it's hard to believe they're all small, but you got a lot of different sizes of bluegill in these reservoirs. I don't know. I can't believe that they're all small, but.
Steve's from Nicholas County. Are you allowed to snag fish for bait, or do you have to net them?
Well, you can use any type of non-sport fish for bait. So I'd say that if you're gonna catch, say you snag a Asian carp and you want to use it for bait, I don't see any issue with that.
Randall is from Muhlenberg County. Best way to get rid of algae in a farm pond, and can the department help with that?
We can provide technical advice. Best way to get rid of algae, if it's the filamentous algae that floating on the surface, a lot of people call it pond scum. You can use copper sulfate compounds. You can buy it at Southern States or Tractor Supply, any of the farm supply stores. Q-Trine Plus is one of the brand names, but just mix that with water, spray it on the plant, and it'll kill it pretty quickly.
Danny's from Grayson County. How many hybrids are stocked in Barron River Lake each year?
I don't have that number. I have no idea.
A bunch?
Yeah, a bunch. And call into Frankfort and ask for me. I'll
You know,
look it
that's
up.
a good time right now to tell you about our 1-800-858-1549 number right now. Also, number 1 Sportsman's Lane, Frankfort, Kentucky. You can do, and what's our website?
fw.ky.gov.
Say that 5 times as fast as you can.
They can also call their district biologist. They'll
Yes.
be able to tell them about anything they need to know on these lakes.
Thomas is from Johnson County. I'd like to know if Paintsville is still being stocked with walleye.
Yes.
Yes.
Kent is from Shelby County. Will you be stocking red ear in Taylorsville Lake?
We do not stock them in there. We don't produce a whole lot of red ear, so we've got a few lakes that we can put them in, typically 2 or 3, and we'll start the population out, for a couple of years, see how it does. But Taylorsville, we are not stocking right now.
Brandon is from Madison County. Crappie wants to know, is there any discussion on going away from the 9 to 10 inch limit on Taylorsville?
We have not discussed that. I can talk with our district biologist and see how they're doing. Actually, the crappie population at Taylorsville is doing very well right now. In fact, Jeff Crosby, the biologist, said he thinks this fall is going to be a great time to fish for them. So,
So mark your
There you
calendar.
go. There you go, Tim.
Randy is from Kenton County. Now, what it says here, this was written down, size limit on flatheads. I don't know if he wants to know if there is a size limit or if he would like there to be one.
if you're on the Ohio River, we do have a new reg that you can have 1 trophy flathead, and that's 1 fish 35 inches and greater. You can keep as many as you want below it. He may be talking about AJ Jolly being up north, and we removed the no harvest restriction on that. That actually hasn't gone through yet, I should say. By next spring, it should be through, and you can keep as many as you want.
And remember, if you don't get through tonight, 1-800-858-1549, I'll brag on them again. We do have the best information people, I think, in the world, and they will make sure you get your question answered. And you guys are the best. I mean, and the audience, we got to give them a huge thumbs up tonight. I'd give you 2 if I could, but I'm in a little trouble over here. Jeff's from Fayette County. Where to fish kayaks within a 45-minute radius of Lexington?
Elkhorn.
I like flat water too with kayaks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's there's so many places you could go there. Harrington Lake. Are you playing guitar over there, officer?
It's not me.
Not you? Well, you know what that means? I think it might be the commissioner who's sitting right over there. He's it's him. But you know what that means? That means an hour, believe it or not, has gone by. And while that music's playing, you know what? I'm just going to keep on asking a few more questions until the cameras go off. Is that okay?
That'll work. Absolutely.
Thank you guys all for being here and doing a great job. And thank you guys behind the cameras over here for taking off this. They could be doing something else on Saturday night, I'm sure. Vincent's from Harris County. Do you need a license to fish at pay lakes?
It depends on whether the license is, if they're licensed by us, then you can get a free permit from them. If they are not licensed through us, then you definitely need a fishing license to fish there.
Mark's from Barron County, fishing on the river. Can he pull over on the bank and start having his own little private fish fry?
So long as he knows who the landowner is and has permission to be there, or if it's a public access area, then he can do it there as well. Just make sure he cleans his trash up.
Clean your trash up. Make sure you're not trespassing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.